vouchers provide the quartermaster with authorization to actually disperse a payment. And some of the discussion that has come up since our last meeting was, does a motion to authorize the quartermaster to pay reoccurring bills between meetings, does that negate the need for a voucher? And the answer is no, it does not. What it does is speed up the process. If you have a motion to authorize the quartermaster to disperse funds because they're reoccurring payments for utilities, for example, when that bill is received, regardless of how that bill is received, it authorizes the adjutant or whoever is designated in your post to initiate a voucher to do so immediately rather than wait for a meeting and present the bill to the membership and have the membership approve it. So all that motion does is allow that process to be speeded up. It allows it to take place without having to have a meeting to authorize it. So the voucher is written upon receipt of the bill and immediately given to the quartermaster, who then, because he has a motion and a properly completed voucher, he can immediately make payment. Now, how you do that within your post as to who handles the receipt of mail, who handles the receipt of bills, how those bills are handled, whether that comes to the quartermaster or the adjutant or the commander or the bartender, whoever picks up the bills, that's a process that you have to sort out within your post. But the purpose of the voucher is to give the quartermaster authority. Even though there's a motion, that is not the authority. The motion allows for the process, but the authority to actually disperse is the voucher. I hope I haven't confused anybody, but it's important to appreciate that the voucher plays a role in the process of ensuring that only those bills that are approved by the floor or those bills that are approved by a reoccurring motion are properly paid. I see that Margot has her hand raised, and I can anticipate Margot's question as it relates to a budget. Margot?
Yes, I was going to ask the same with committee budgets. If it's approved um, at the beginning of our fiscal cycle, does that also speed up the process?
Well, it does if you have a properly approved budget. And when you said a committee budget, that causes me to pause and say a properly approved budget is a post budget, not a committee budget.
When
So
when I
if you
said
have
committee,
a, if you have a post budget and that post budget has been approved by the post membership, then you can argue that that motion to approve that budget is authority to disperse funds as long as they are within the scope of the approved budget. That does not negate the need for a voucher. the voucher still has to be written to authorize that individual disbursement against the budget. Does that make sense?
Yes, and when I said committee, I mean each of our committees rolled it up to the post budget.
Yeah,
So
but it's a
yes,
post budget that you're working with. And of course, your
yes.
post budget is broken down into committee disbursements, but right? Okay. So once again, that approval for the budget um, uh, is the same as a motion to pay reoccurring bills. It defines some authorization to pay certain bills as long as they meet certain parameters, either reoccurring bills or bills that are uh, uh, properly accounted for within an approved budget. At the department level, for instance, our bills, we pass a department budget and our bills are paid um, and vouchers are prepared against that budget. And you can do the same thing at the post level. Most posts, it's very unusual that a post would have a budget. You might have some guidelines, but you wouldn't necessarily always have a budget. The last meeting, we looked at some um, samples of what a voucher might look like. And this is a sample of the voucher that we use at department, for example. Very simple. Who's completing the voucher, what's it for, what's the amount, signed by the commander and signed by the adjutant quartermaster. Um, Here's another example of a voucher, the same one. This one happens to be in a Word document and it's fillable. You can type it in and use it as you see fit.
Hey, Barry. I'm not sure
Yes.
which screen you're sharing, but right now we just see your file explorer.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not seeing
Okay.
you're not seeing the share?
We just see your file explorer with all your files in it. You might have to move your file into the screen that you're sharing. So we can see your mouse there on the screen, and it looks like you're
Okay, can you
opening
see the
things
form?
up.
Can you see the form?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet?
We just see your pointer with the little time next to it. So I don't know if it's open up on a different screen. Do you have multiple screens, Barry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, let me see if I can clean that up. Can you see it now?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. This is a fillable Word version of the voucher that we use at department. Very simple format. The this Can you see this one?
You're gonna have to define this one. Right now, we just see post 333 Department of Michigan voucher where it says 40 cents per mile on the bottom. There we go. Up.
Can you see this voucher?
No, we just see your file explorer again.
Now can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. This is a voucher that's used by one of our posts. Once again, very simple, straightforward. So any version of this that you can use would be acceptable. Once again, as long as it provides the necessary information. Who is the payment going to be made to? How is it going to be made? Is it going to be made by check or ACH or EFT, whatever form of payment? And then what's it for? And the amount and the authorizing signatures. This is can you see this voucher? I'm betting you cannot.
Nope, we just see the one with the red logo on top.
Can you see it now?
There we go. PDF fillable
Okay.
version.
This is another form of a fillable voucher that was done by post quartermaster in Harrison. You can enter your own post number. You can enter your own location. You can enter whatever post number you have, expense voucher for whatever post you are, whatever the voucher number is, the date, the number of miles. Whoops, I entered the wrong. Let's see. You enter the date and then the number of miles, and it will automatically calculate how much you owe him, but based on 40 cents a mile. I had a little problem with some of the calculations. I don't know if I corrupted it when I copied it over, but um, uh, the quartermaster from 1075 in Harrison, District 11, would be Ben is here, and Ben would be more than happy to help you uh, uh, prepare this as a working fillable voucher for your post if you decided to do that. Right, Ben? Just shake your head yes. There you go. Ben really did just a tremendous amount of work uh, filling this out, devising it. So Ben, thank you. I've showed it to a couple of posts that are gonna probably either contact you or just make use of it as you got it. So once again, thanks.
Keegan, I apologize. I don't have the ability to raise my hand. This is Dan.
Hi Dan, how are you?
Doing all right, sir. How about yourself, Barry? Quick question. In reviewing all of these various voucher forms that you've been presenting, it appears to me that, for example, on the form before us, it's for mileage, but um, it is possible to have more than one expenditure discreetly documented on this style of voucher. In this case, it
As
looks
long,
like we could do what.
and that is correct. A voucher can be prepared for more than one expenditure as long as it's to the same person, the same individual. So one voucher per disbursement. However, there may be multiple expenses that totaled that disbursement. It is not unusual for us to receive vouchers for mileage, vouchers for mileage for several different travel events. A officer may submit to us a voucher for his mileage to go to a district meeting, and then for his mileage to go to someplace else, to an assignment, whatever it might be. So he may have 4 or 5 different events listed on the same voucher. The voucher then can be, it's going to be up to the quartermaster when he pays that voucher and he enters those disbursements into the ledger on how he distributes those disbursements within the ledger accounts. And we're going to get to the ledger accounts in just a moment. So you're absolutely right. As long as the voucher is prepared for a single payee, a vendor, whatever that might be, but there may be multiple entries on that voucher. Does that make sense, Dan?
I understand your explanation. For the District 6, the voucher that I've prepared um, permits the identification of multiple payees and indicates it within the voucher, payee number 1 is paid by this check number.
I don't see a problem with that, but it might, when it comes audit time, to audit it, you've got to make sure that your trustees are well versed in how you're doing that. If all of those various expenses are approved by the same motion at the same meeting, theoretically, you've got no problem. It's a combined voucher document. I personally don't see a problem with it as long as your trustees are happy with the ability to trace payments. Keeping in
Understood.
mind that all of those receipts or documentation as may be appropriate should be attached to the voucher as well.
100%. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, so have we beat the voucher issue to death? I think so. I appreciate your indulgence. The other question that came up quite a bit in my discussion since our last meeting was document retention. And everybody see this document. This is the document retention schedule that is part of the quartermaster's guide in the department, or in the National Quartermaster's Handbook. And it follows IRS pretty close. There are 1 or 2 minor areas that this document covers that the IRS does not, for committee reports, for example, that kind of thing. But if you use this as a guide for your document retention, you can't go wrong. One of the areas of biggest concern is at the bottom here of this page, and that is employee records, payroll records, that kind of thing. there are various categories of those kinds of records. And one of them is if you terminate somebody, their employment record has to be retained longer than an employee that's a continuous employee or an employee that terminates their own employment. And the insurance records of that employee have to be kept for a longer period of time as well. So you want to, within an employee's personnel file, if you keep a good personnel records, you want to make sure that you've identified if they were covered by any kind of insurance, if they had an accident while on the job, etc. You want to make sure that you're keeping the proper record for the correct amount of time. One of the biggest issues here in terms of post records is general correspondence. You got to keep general correspondence. And what does that constitute? Correspondence with members or correspondence with municipalities or what? And if it's just general in nature, you got to keep it for a certain period of time. But if it's regarding property, you might have to keep it for a longer period of time. So it becomes in a matter of interpretation on what you have to keep and for how long. But follow this document. National has been very helpful to us when we have questions. We take a specific question to the Adjutant General's office, and they're very helpful in giving us guidance. So don't hesitate if you've got a particular question about document retention, what category should it fall into? Don't hesitate to ask, and we'll be pleased to try to get you a good answer for your record retention. And just so you see, vouchers have to be kept for 7 years. So it's interesting what the different categories of document retention. Any specific questions that anybody has? I've had the opportunity to have to share this quite a bit since our last meeting, and it is readily available in the Quartermaster's Guide. No questions? Very good. Thank you.
Barry, for folks' reference, I did drop the links to that document in the chat. So if folks aren't looking at the chat, I did put some links in there for folks to be able to open up that document we just had up for records retention.
Yeah. Okay. The next area that I'd like to go into is a chart of accounts and a chart of assets. In preparation of a ledger, and I'm sorry, but I lost myself here. Can you see this short chart?
Yes.
List of accounts? When you're setting up a ledger, you first need to do a little bit of planning. You need to decide what the layout of your ledger is going to look like, regardless of how you do it, whether you use a book or whether you use a Polymer pad or whether you use an Excel spreadsheet. No matter what form you use, you need to have some pre-thought organization to it. Are you just going to have a checking account? Are you going to be depositing and moving money in and out of a savings account as well as the checking account? Do you have some investment accounts that you're going to keep track of in your on your ledger, or are you going to do them in a separate spreadsheet of some kind? You need to think about how that chart is going to be organized. Once you've decided what your asset accounts are going to be, where you're going to be moving money in and out of, checking accounts, savings accounts, etc., you then need to decide what your fund accounts are going to look like. Can you see this account, this chart?
Not yet.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. This is a chart of accounts for organization of your ledger. And the National Organization of a Ledger calls for national department dues, calls for an optional admission fees. I don't know that we might still have a couple of posts in Michigan that charge admission fees. If you do, they need to be part of your chart of accounts in your ledger. Historically, the VFW used to require a dues reserve fund to be kept. And at the end of every fiscal year, the dues reserve fund would be canceled out and transferred to the general fund. And the thought process there being that the dues reserve fund would establish a beginning of funds for a new administration. That was a requirement in the bylaws that was removed from the bylaws about 25 years ago, and dues reserve funds are no longer required. We still have a couple of posts in Michigan that maintain a dues reserve fund. If you do, that needs to be part of your chart of accounts. And then your general fund. And then after that, they're up to you with one exception, and that additional exception is the relief fund, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But you may have a building fund, and within your building fund, you may have some separate funds that you keep track of separately, or you may make them part of your principal chart of accounts. For instance, you may have a roof that within 3 years' time needs to be replaced. So you may establish a roof repair fund, or a parking lot that needs to be repaved, or planning for a bad winter, you may need to be planning ahead to replace a furnace or an air conditioner. You can set those up as either temporary funds within your chart of accounts, or you may have them inclusive in your building fund and have a separate chart of accounts for your building fund to keep track of them. And I know of at least one post that is doing that. So you need to plan ahead and think about, how do I want this to look on my ledger once I decide what funds I want. Then you may have a bingo fund, you may have a kitchen fund, and within your kitchen fund, you may have separate categories as well. The canteen fund, those of you that have canteens, it is improper just to have a canteen checking account and using that as a record of your canteen fund. Your canteen fund should feed the balance of the canteen fund should be tracked in your post funds. The quartermaster is responsible for them. You need to decide how you're going to track that. You may have an honor guard fund, a color guard fund. You may have a youth program fund for your VOD and Patriot Pen and other youth activity programs. In my post, we used to have a fire truck fund. We had an old Diamond Rio fire truck, and we used it in parades. Well, old Diamond Rio fire trucks have a tendency to break down. So we had a fund set aside with funds to repair it when it broke down. And then the relief fund. And of course, the relief fund is, we all know, comes from our distribution of Buddy Poppies and dedicated donations. But this is the chart of accounts that will establish what your ledger is going to look like. And you want to put some thought into this, how you want this organized, so that when you set up your ledger, you're reflecting what you really want to report. Keeping in mind that all funds, all of your money should be distributed into some kind of fund. So if you've got $10,000 in the bank, that $10,000 should be distributed in some way into into these funds, so that they're traceable and reportable. So when you prepare your ledger, do some thought to it, and you'll find that it will make more sense to you as you actually work with your ledger if you've got some organization to it. Any questions on a chart of accounts? Margot, because she uses, in her post, she uses a budget. The budget may drive very easily what that chart of accounts might look like.
She's got her hand up, Barry.
I'm sorry?
Margot's got her hand up.
Margot?
All right, Barry, I'm gonna ask the silly question. You need to dumb it down for me. I'm not an accountant. I'm a newer quartermaster that did not get training. From my understanding, the fund accounts, other than relief, but like for instance, on my ledger, I have 4 different accounts, relief being one. And my general account does building and stuff, but nothing really feeds that except for rentals. So how do these different funds work? And once I said, please dumb it down for me, because you're talking doctorate level to an elementary student.
Okay, I certainly don't want to do that. And I think if I show you how a ledger is laid out, that might help. Okay? So let me try to do that for you. So this is the first page of a very simple ledger. You see that, Margot?
Yes.
Okay. And in on your ledger, you may only have, like you said, you may only have uh, uh, a dues fund, and then you may have a general fund, and then a relief fund, and everything goes in and out of your general fund except for your relief fund. That's entirely acceptable. That's up to you, but that kind of defeats the purpose of your having a budget. If you're going to keep track of money that is being authorized or spent from your budget, how do you keep track of how much is left? You got to have some record, and that's the purpose of your ledger and the distribution of funds. So when you set your budget, you may say that for maintenance of the building, I'm gonna anticipate X amount of dollars, and for heat and utilities, X amount of dollars, and for community service, X amount of dollars, whatever it is. Well, keeping track of that in a ledger form will help keep track of how much money you've got left in your budget. So you're going to set up these different uh, 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 funds consistent with, in your case, with your budget. In other posts that don't have a budget, they're going to distribute their funds as in major categories. And let's take a look at one. And everybody see this this ledger layout?
Yes.
Okay, in this post, they've got their bank account, money received and money expended. Then they got national dues, they've got admission fees, they've got a general fund, a relief fund, and a building fund, and then they got some others. And they may identify one year they're going to keep track of the color guard. They're going to keep track of expenses for repairing the roof, whatever. But the point is that the VFW suggests what is known as a double entry system. And a double entry system says, I receive $100. And when I get that $100, I am going to assign that $100 someplace. Well, I may distribute that $100, $50 of it to the general fund, and I may distribute the other $50 to the building fund. So I have accounted for how much money I received by distributing it amongst these various funds. Likewise, if I spend $100, I may spend $90 of that $100 from the general fund, and I may spend the other expend the other $10 of it from the building fund. So I've accounted for my $100 and distributed it amongst these various funds. That's double entry fund accounting, and it is a method to simply, this is how much money I either brought in or how much money I spent, and out of what pocket did I put the money or take the money. Now, my mother and dad years ago used to, on payday, my dad cashed his check and they took the money from his paycheck and they put it in about a half a dozen different envelopes labeled car insurance, house insurance, car payment, consumers, etc. That's all you're doing here is you're taking all of that money that you got on payday and distributing it on where you expect to spend it. And then when you spend it, you take it out of that envelope. And that's all you're doing here. When you spend it, you're taking it out of the building fund, but you're accounting for the whole amount of money that you spent. So in Dan Todd's case, in his district, he wrote a check for $600 because he had a combined voucher, right, Dan? So he wrote a check for $600. How many different funds did that $600 come out of? If he may, within his district books, he may have officers' expenses of travel, officers' expenses of meals, whatever. He's going to divide that $600 up amongst the various funds that he took it out of. Dan, did I summarize it correctly like you do in your district?
Yes, sir.
Likewise, when money comes in, you want to reflect that in your various funds and distribute it as you anticipate the need. The distribution of receipted money, you receive, let's say you have Buddy Poppy distribution day and you receive $100, we know where that's going to go. That $100 that you received from the distribution of Buddy Poppies, that has to go into your relief fund according to the bylaws. But if you get a donation from Joe Blow, who you put on a funeral dinner for, he may say, you know what, I donated $400 because you did a funeral dinner for me. And when we were there, I noticed that the color guard, they needed some new uniforms. So I got a color guard fund over here. And he may say, I'd like to see about half of that $400 go to the color guard for them to have for new uniforms. And the rest of it you can put in the general fund and use it for anything you want. I think I got that $200 on the wrong line there. But when you receive money, likewise, you got to distribute it. How is that money distributed? And what do these funds, where does that end up at? When you set up your chart of accounts and then you set up your ledger, sooner or later, the accounting of those is going to appear on your monthly report of receipts and disbursements. So your ledger and how those funds are distributed or where the funds that money comes from is going to be summarized in your monthly report of receipts and disbursements. Likewise, it's going to be then reported as part of your report of trustees audit. The same funds that you're listing in your ledger are the same funds that should be reflected in your monthly report of receipts and disbursements in summary and on your your trustees report of quarterly audit. So that's really why you want to really, when you set up your ledger, what is it I'm going to keep track of? Keeping in mind, you got to keep track of all of the money, but how are you going to distribute it? And that thought process of that chart of accounts, defining the ledger is going to feed the monthly report of receipts and disbursements, and that report of receipts and disbursements is going to feed your trustees report of audit. If you set it up good, it will all flow. All of your balance, all of your accounts will be reflected in each separate document based on the schedule of record keeping. Are there any questions about setting up a ledger? And does the double entry system, is that intimidating to anybody, or is that pretty understandable? Margot's shaking her head. It's intimidating. What's intimidating about it, Margot?
So several years ago, we did that, and it confused our past quartermaster. So they moved to a different ledger system, and I'm finding, okay, the chart of funds. So I've been tracking the different areas of our budget a different way. It makes sense, and I'm trying to read this. It makes sense knowing basic accounting. At the same time, I could see it just getting months just terrible.
Well, I think that, and maybe some of our more experienced quartermasters that are with us can share a thought that most of the time quartermasters that are new to this get in trouble because they look at their money in one great big pot, and your money needs to be defined. When money comes in, you need to decide, how do I want to account for this money? You're going to put it all in the bank. $400 is going into the bank. But of that $400, some of it is going to be restricted in some way. In this case, the guy said, of the $400 I'm giving you, I want $200 of it restricted to the color guard. The other $200 you can put in the general fund, and you can use it any way you want to. All you're doing is making a decision for future reference. Where is that money going? And when I spend it, where is it going to come from? So next month, I have a need for a shirt for a member of the color guard. It's going to cost me $85 to buy that new shirt from the color for a member of the color guard. All I'm doing is accounting for that $85. And I spend it. And because it's coming out of the color guard fund, that's where I reflect it. Does that make sense to you, Margot?
Do you do a ledger per checking account?
Well, when you write a check, or when make a payment in any way, we've been kind of shortcutting here, but so you're going to write a check to Kohl's for a shirt. I don't know how you spell Kohl's.
Okay.
Okay, and then you're going to enter the check number, in this case 1002. And then how much did you write the check for? $85. And that $85 came out of the color guard fund. So all you're doing is just keeping track of where your money comes from, so
Well,
that in your budget, you know how much money you got left. Your budget allows you to spend money up to a certain amount. if you spend more than that, now you got to go back to the post members and request authorization to spend more than what your budget previously approved.
I just gave you that.
If you're operating without a budget, that's why you need post approval for every expenditure unless it's pre-approved by a recurring motion. So I think maybe, Margot, I'd be happy to spend some time with you one-on-one and try to simplify it for you. But this is basic double entry accounting and fund accounting. At the department level, I probably got 40 accounts, 40 funds that we keep track of. And that's not unusual at the department level. At the district level, I would imagine he's generally working with about maybe 8 or 10 funds. Dan, in your district, how many funds do you keep track of at the district level?
I believe we've got about 5, Barry.
5. And most posts will be running maybe 5 or 6 or 7 funds. If they have a club room, they may run a little bit more. But they're going to have a general fund, a relief fund, a building fund, a kitchen fund of some kind, possibly a bingo fund if they have it, that kind of thing. So most posts are going to be running 5, 6, 7, 8 different funds. And those
Barry?
have to be somewhere. Yes.
Barry, I have 8 funds. I mean, I have
I'm
8
sorry?
accounts and a separate CD. So it can get to be hairy.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not hearing who's speaking.
This is Robin.
Hi, Robin. Okay.
Yeah. I'm saying I have 8 accounts and I have one extra that's the fund, our EJ, and then and it can get hairy at times.
Yeah.
But I do it.
Well, and it takes some discipline to stay organized with it, doesn't it? And if you let it go, it'll eat you up. It'll walk away from you really fast. Tim, you have a question?
I have a comment.
Oh, yes.
I had a separate business many years ago, and my accountant made the spreadsheet clear to me in that between the cash and bank account and national department dues, he said, draw a vertical line there, a big black line or red line, whatever you want. And that way you remember that everything on the left side of it has to have an entry on the right side. And
Yeah.
if you have multiple bank accounts, like I do now here at the post, I've got 4 bank accounts, then that means there will be 4 of those lines up here at the top that says cash and bank. It will be the 4 separate accounts. So
That's right.
but the same rule still applies. If you make a entry on the left of the line, you've got to make an entry on the right.
Yeah. And that's exactly correct. And for instance, we got posts that everything goes in and out of their checking account, or they may have a checking account and a savings account. And so, depending on what that money comes in as, they may decide to put it right into their savings account. So they keep track of how much money goes in and out of their checking and how much money goes in and out of their savings. Likewise, they may from time to time transfer money to an investment account. So they may keep track of several different asset lines for how their money is held, or they may have money in 2 different banks, 2 different checking accounts, whatever. So you may keep as you said, just draw that line and say everything on the left is a total. This is where the money comes from, and then this is where how it's handled, where it's assigned in terms of holding it. Is that pretty much what you meant, Tim?
Yes. And another comment too, if I'm transferring from one fund to the other, let's say from general to color guard, then over on the left, you're not moving anything from the bank, but you still have to make an entry here saying, in something like QuickBooks, that would be a journal entry saying why the money was moved from one to the other, and you
Yeah.
should have a voucher.
Yeah. And all you have to do is for an entry, say, I'm transferring money.
Yep.
And you're not moving anything in and out of the bank, but you're moving it from one fund to another. So you may move money from the general fund. You're taking it out of the general fund, but you're going to put it over in the color guard fund, as you said.
Yep.
So your total bank account hasn't changed, but your fund balances have changed.
Correct.
So all you're doing is making a notation that I'm transferring money from one account to another. And as long as you stay in balance, you make sure that your entries are the same on both sides, then you're always going to be in balance.
Correct.
Barry, we have a question from Dan.
Yes.
Yeah. So I use for the district a ledger very comparable to the one you've got here. One of the features I've built into my ledger is the net total received and expended is a formula. So you only input the expenditure or the receipt underneath one specific account, and then it automatically calculates it back to the left side of the page. There's a couple other. Is that an acceptable process to use formulas to help get the information where it needs to go?
Yes, once again, the issue becomes acceptance by your trustees or good training with your trustees so that the ledger can be audited against receipts or against records of disbursement. You don't want to get so sophisticated in the formation of your ledger that movement of funds is hidden in some way and cannot be properly audited.
Agreed. Yes. Thank
you. Yeah. And we get some posts that try to do too much on a single entry, and they lose track of that detail that needs to be there when the trustees go to audit it. So that would be the only concern, Dan. Well-trained trustees can solve a multitude of problems, but you got to train them as you go. Any other questions about the setup of the ledger itself then? Okay. I'll see if I can mess up the sharing here one more time. Isn't it? See the report of receipts and disbursements?
Yep, we've got it up, Barry.
Okay, so down at the bottom half of, or the bottom third of the report of receipts and disbursements, on the left-hand side should be those same funds that you've listed in your, as accounting funds in your ledger. Your report of receipts and disbursements should be reflecting those same funds, whatever they are. Now, we have one post in the department that has 17 checking accounts. Yeah, I know, it gives you a headache just to think about it. His report of receipts and disbursements, this section of his report is quite long. And that's fine, but he keeps track of a number of funds, each in those separate checking accounts. His kitchen fund has a separate checking account. His bingo fund has a separate checking account, as you might imagine. The canteen has a separate checking account. So all of those, in addition to the funds within his main ledger, are reflected. And the importance of the monthly report of receipts and disbursements is it really comes right down to the summary of the transactions within these funds. If you fill out the report of receipts and disbursements correctly, between meetings, receipts, where did the money come from? How much? Disbursements, was it authorized? What was the voucher number, or what was the check number? Who to and how much? Everything that comes in and everything that goes out comes out of one of these funds. With fund accounting, it should be a direct summary. If on that ledger, the totals down at the bottom should feed this report. You shouldn't have to do any additional, if you use that kind of ledger setup like we just looked at in an Excel format, the totals of those fund receipts and disbursements will give you the totals for these funds if you set your funds up on your record for the monthly report, the same as what your ledger is, then it's a direct transfer from that balance to these balances. What did you start with? How much did you get? How much did you spend? What's your final period balances? Does anybody have a monthly problem with preparing, or do we have some posts that don't prepare the monthly report of receipts and disbursements? Everybody does something that equals the report of receipts and disbursements. I think the biggest part here is making sure that your receipts are recorded the same as what they are in your ledger. Your disbursements are recorded the same as what they are in the ledger, and that you've got proper references to either check numbers or voucher numbers for disbursements or receipt numbers for receipts. If you're keeping track of your funds in the same manner that we were looking at in your ledger, it should be a direct transfer of balances, and you shouldn't have any problem. But once again, you got to make sure that your ledger is set up the way that makes sense to you and keeps track of the funds that you want. Any questions on the monthly report of receipts and disbursements and the listing of the funds that should be reflected. I'm not getting any response, so I'm assuming the answer is no. Dan, you had a question or a comment?
I was going to ask the question, if a post or district has a very detailed ledger that shows all the receipts and disbursements, would that not qualify as the same document?
From a practical point of view, yes. The intent, however, is that the report of receipts and disbursements that is given at every meeting is acknowledged by the trustees. Now, if you have in your ledger, if you terminate your ledger every month and you have that acknowledged by the trustees, then you've accomplished the same purpose. We've got some posts that maintain their ledger by quarters. If they do it by quarters, then you're not fulfilling this requirement of a detailed report of receipts and disbursements. And the emphasis here is a report of receipts and disbursements for a period of time. And it's the requirement by the bylaws is that a report of receipts and disbursements since the previous meeting to the current meeting. Well, if your meetings occur on the third Tuesday, they're not on the end of the month. So your ledger hasn't been closed for the month. Are you cheating the system by only reporting the previous month, or are you actually reporting the receipts and disbursements since the last meeting from the 15th to the 15th? You tell me. They serve two different purposes. The ledger is to be maintained for a calendar period. The report of receipts and disbursements is a record for a different calendar period. Between meetings, from one meeting to another, which may or may not be from the first of the month to the end of the month. And a district that report of receipts and disbursements, once again, is from meeting to meeting, not necessarily from on a calendar period. Does my concern make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
So a lot of this can be tradition within a post or a district. How do they traditionally do it? I know some posts that, you know, they only report the receipts and disbursements based on the previous calendar month, not from meeting to meeting. It makes it a lot simpler, but is it in a true spirit of what the bylaws are asking for? And it's not within the true spirit, but if that is their tradition, then, and it's acceptable to the trustees and to the membership, then so be it. At the department level, for example, regardless of when we have our meeting, I report a report of receipts and disbursements to the end of the month previous to our meeting. So, for example, at Midwinter Conference, our report of receipts and disbursements was from the 1st of October through the end of the 31st of December. Was it between meetings? No, it was based on a calendar period. So that is our tradition. Is it in the true spirit? No, it's not. But it is what has been acceptable to our membership. So what's acceptable to your membership is what drives you. As long as you've got full accounting, it's auditable by the trustees, and the trustees are in agreement with the process. Is that fair? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's a real good question, and I know we've got some posts that the trustees sign the ledger, and the quartermaster reads his report directly from the ledger. The other issue to be dealt with is this is supposed to be a copy of this is supposed to be given to the adjutant for the adjutant's record to be attached to the minutes at the meeting for which it is read. So you might have to satisfy that issue in some other way, Dan, at the post level. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna tell you no. I'm gonna say deal with it, work it out, and as long as everybody is in agreement, you got no argument. But you want to make sure your trustees and your membership all understand what that process looks like, and that you're 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 being accountable for the entire period. Okay, I double talked enough. I don't think that I want to go into trustees report. We don't have enough time to get through it. So I would rather hold that then until the next session, if everybody is in agreement. And just ask if anybody's got any general questions about anything that we've covered either tonight or in their first class, and try to address some general questions if there are any.
Gerald, did you have one, or are you just waving at all of us? You have to take yourself off mute,
Yep.
sir. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. I'm one of the quartermasters that got absolutely zero training because our quartermaster got arrested. So one of my questions I've been coming across is the adjutant cannot be the commander, but the adjutant can be the quartermaster. Now, isn't that a conflict of interest when it comes to like checks and balancing? I'm literally, if I'm the adjutant, I'm giving myself permission to write a check.
Okay, first of all, the adjutant is appointed, and the adjutant can be the commander. The commander can appoint himself to be the adjutant. And we've got a number of posts where the commander is the adjutant. The commander can appoint the quartermaster to be the adjutant. And it is not a conflict of interest, but it does require then some coordination in terms of the requirement of the preparation of the voucher, which is why the commander is ultimately responsible to ensure the voucher, and the commander is responsible to sign the voucher regardless of who prepares it.
Correct. Okay. You answered
Okay.
my question then, Barry.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions along those lines? Okay.
I I have a
We're
comment.
about 10 minutes
We got
ahead.
somebody. We got somebody, Barry. I'm not sure who that was. Kind of quiet.
Okay.
Barry, one thing that comment I wanted to make is if you're doing a spreadsheet and you produce your reports, then after they've been signed, you should, if you're doing it in the computer, you need to put it back into the computer in the form of a PDF because the spreadsheet can be accidentally changed and the PDF cannot.
Tim, you're exactly correct, and it's a very good point. If somebody is using an Excel spreadsheet format, for instance, as a solution to their ledger, and there's a couple of different versions of that Excel solution out there, then at the end of every calendar reporting period, that should be closed, converted to a PDF so that it's a permanent record. At least it would make it far more difficult to try to change it. And then recorded separately, and then a new reporting period started with a new ledger page. The solution for using the Excel spreadsheets is not new. We've been using Excel spreadsheets for 30 years in various forms to do these things, but the closure of them and saving them as a more or less permanent document by converting them to a PDF is relatively new. We used to just have a file full of Excel spreadsheets. And now, as you all know, if you can edit it, somebody can find a way to circumvent something. So I appreciate the comment, Tim. It's good practice. Close out each reporting period, save it as a permanent record, and move on with a new ledger sheet. Any other comments, suggestions? Okay, comrades, I appreciate your patience tonight. I had a computer, evidently my Zoom file was corrupted the other night when I was doing another session, and I had some problems with it. I thought I had it corrected, but when I tried to log in tonight, I found out I didn't. I apologize for the delay, but I appreciate everybody's attendance tonight, and our next class will be on March the 26th, if I recall the calendar correctly. And with your permission, we'll start with the quartermaster, or correction, the trustees' report of quarterly audit. And we'll pick that, start right off with that as we progress from the monthly report of receipts and disbursements. Okay. Once again, I want to thank everybody for attending. We had another good group, not quite as big as the first class, but I appreciate everybody's attendance and participation. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to Washington, D.C., so don't call me. I'm just teasing. I'm not driving. Rhino's driving, so you can call me all you want. You'll keep him awake. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
Tegan, thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Barry, before you can disconnect, can I ask you a sidebar question on day of service?
Of course.
Just
right
to let
ahead.
you know, this is still
Thanks.
recording. So if you want to take this question
yeah.
over the phone, you might want to end the recording
Yeah.
first.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Tegan.
Have a good night.